The number of Chicago Bears in the NFL Hall of Fame from the 80s is insane. But get this, we now have to draft the best defensive duos at each position from the 1980s to present to create a super team. Who will form the true monsters of the Midway? Stick around to see why it's not as easy as it sounds. Huddle up! Huddle up, Bears fans. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. Tonight's going to be a fun one. We got a snake draft going. Bob Weiss and Justin are here, and we have the infamous, the Gary Rappaport Ross has joined the show. Gary, welcome in.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to doing this.
Yeah, it is going to be a lot of fun. Just to get into it, guys, we are going to be doing another snake draft episode. We did an offensive one a few weeks ago. We are now going to look at defense. But what we're going to do a little bit differently here is we are going to be picking duos, right? We're going to be picking teammates. So these people have to play together. So we're going to be picking defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker, cornerback, and safety. But they have had to have played together. And on top of it, we are going to be picking from decades 1980s through present. Okay, nothing earlier. Sorry, Dick Butkus.
A couple others: Bill George, Doug Atkins.
Yeah,
you guys.
Atkins.
Doug Buffone. Doug Buffone. Yeah. So no disrespect, but 5 decades, 5 position groups. It just kind of makes some sense. So yeah. I will say, Ryan, our guest last week, had a great draft in our biggest blunder. So congratulations on him for winning last draft. But I still beat you two fools. So I'm excited about that. So I hope I keep my streak running. Good luck, Gary. We'll see how it goes today.
Hey, I hope to keep in his good faith and win this week. I got a decent strategy, so we'll see.
There you go. Can't wait to see
it. First pick probably helps.
It does. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Just to note on that, we are in order of draft order. We did this pre-show. So Gary gets first pick, Bob's second pick, Justin is third, and I will take the turn at 4. Gary,
let's do it.
All right. Well, I was born.
I take that back. Make sure that when you do your picks to announce what decade you're choosing them in, because there are some overlaps of players, right? So that way I can keep up with it.
No, that's true too. But all right, I'll start off. I was born right after the Super Bowl in 1986, so there's a lot of different directions I could have gone. But most of the time growing up and through college, there was only one duo that was probably the best duo in the last 25 years, and that is the first-time Pro Bowl Hall of Famer and the 7-time Pro Bowler. So Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs, come on down. We're taking them from the 2000s.
Yeah, that's just impossible to argue with. I mean, just both are excellent players. I mean, there's going to be some other impressive duos here, but like they just dominated the league for a decade together. It was always Urlacher and Briggs, Urlacher and Briggs. So yeah, that's a great way to start off this draft.
At 3, I didn't think I had a chance. I would have loved them, but that's probably the right way to go. One's in the Hall and one's in the Hall of Very Good.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I thought you were going to go in a different direction. They were on my thought process for you, but I was like, I think he might go in a different direction here, knowing he had the first pick. But
I was tempted to go in a very different direction, but I'm going to go for the home run to start the game.
Hey, good choice. Can't go wrong with those two.
All right, so I'm second pick. I'm gonna think maybe throw a little bit of wrench in this draft right away. I am taking a pair of teammates who played together for 4 years. One is a Hall of Famer. One's not necessarily in the Hall of Very Good, but this is the 1990s defensive end duo of Richard Dent and Trace Armstrong. Now, I know Richard Dent perhaps had some better years in the 80s, but that does not mean this man didn't dominate in the 90s. With Armstrong, they played together in 90, 91, 92, 93. They combined for over 70 sacks in those 4 years between the two of them. So they absolutely dominated. Richard Dent himself had 2 Pro Bowlers and 1 second-team All-Pro. So it's just, 90s is one of those decades, as we did in the offensive draft, that I just wanted to make sure I got something great. And I got the Hall of Famer who played on the 90s Bears and played really, really well. So I'm excited to start my team off this way.
Ooh, that's You really hurt me there, because not only did you take a strong player in a strong decade, but you took him out of contention in a different decade. So really nice
agree with
showing.
you,
Not
Justin.
checkers, boys. Chestnut.
That threw up my strategy off a little bit. Exactly what you said, Justin. You split decades there with the guy from the 80s that was very right up front and could have been taken 1-1 even by me. But good job, Bob. I think that threw me off a little bit already. So nice job.
And obviously Richard Dent's the headliner there, but let's not discount Trace Armstrong. We've been doing a lot of content about all-time Bears and defensive players, and Trace Armstrong's on every one of those lists of best defensive ends in Chicago Bears history.
Don't forget pseudo team president for the last 20 years.
Oh, yes, he also
runs
very influential still, so I'm happy to go this way.
Yeah, you completely screwed this whole entire draft already at 1.2. Good job, Bob. Good job.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, so I am going to have to take a guy. I mean, it's not like I'm settling here. He did go to 10 straight Pro Bowls, Defensive Player of the Year twice. My only debate is with which teammate I'm going to put him with. But I'm going to go 1980s, Mike Singletary, and Wilbur Marshall. And I'm bringing up Wilbur Marshall because I brought him up last episode as a big-time mistake for the Bears to get rid of him. He didn't play as long as he should have with the Bears, but in the time he was there, he was a wrecking ball. Averaged 92 tackles a year, 6 sacks a year, 3 picks, and 3 forced fumbles. So he did it all. And right alongside Mike Singletary, who also was just a menace on the field. So I'm pretty happy. I think Urlacher and Briggs might be a better linebacker duo potentially, but I think I got the number 2. So I'm happy with that.
So an interesting way. I mean, Singletary and Marshall were probably the second on my board. It was more a strategic move to go to Denton Armstrong. I mean, Marshall was a beast too. Like as you went through in our last draft. So yeah, I mean, if I might have thrown a wrench in your draft plans, but you ended up with a heck of a duo here.
You guys already ruined my whole entire draft strategy. So I'm just going to go completely out of the realm of where I wanted to go with this whole entire thing. And because Bob pretty much ruined everything at 1.2, I am going to have to hit the 80s right away. And I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. But I am going to here at pick 4. And I'm going to go with Dan Hampton and Steve Mongo McMichael. I just, out of what was left, I feel like they were the best options. And they'll look good on the graphic at the end of the show when everyone can go and vote and at the recap. So,
well, Rob, you got to sell your picks, man. You're like acting like you're apologizing for taking Dan Hampton and Steve McMichael. Like, come on, these guys are beasts, absolute monsters.
Look, they are beasts, but it's just not the direction that I wanted to go. My plan was to hit
people don't know that.
So, Rob, where are you taking him? Are you taking him at D and or DT?
I'm taking him at DT.
Ooh,
that's the interesting part of it. Is both of them could have been end or DT. I was hoping to get Hampton and Dent for 80s. That would have been a nice duo, 2 Hall of Famers. But yeah, you got 2 Hall of Famers, and from the decade that they were definitely known for their defense. So it's interesting to see how many of those are off the board already.
All right, keep talking while I think for my next pick.
I would have not have thought of Dan Hampton as a defensive tackle. I know he played there a lot, but Dan Hampton's a Hall of Famer at defensive end. So Rob's skating the rules just a little bit there, trying to get into the 80s, I think.
I mean, in the research I found, and especially, again, we're doing a lot of historical Bears over the last few weeks, and you see Hampton's name at end some seasons, defensive tackle next season. I think they're probably interchangeable. I mean, obviously, we didn't get to watch a lot of 80s Bears week in and week out to really know how much they might have moved up and down the line, but I got no problem with, using the rules to your advantage there. He definitely qualifies to tackle.
All right. I have decided on my next pick, so I will push us into the second round. I was going with this pick at this point anyway, and I think I'm just going to stick with it, even though 80s isn't where I wanted to go with the first pick. I am taking a guy who I believe who's not in the Hall of Fame, but better make it into the Hall of Fame because he literally has a coined phrase in the NFL, and I am going to pair him with the interceptor. So I am going with Charles Peanut Tillman and Nathan Vasher, okay, at 2.1 here, and this will be in the 2000s.
Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, hard to argue. I assumed that if you didn't draft him, I thought Justin was going to. I did not think that those two were coming back to me.
Well, and Tillman, guys, he could have been 2000s or 2010s. Spanned quite a lot of time, very productive the whole time. So it's just a matter of who you wanted to pair him with and which decade you were going to approach it. But yeah, you're right. The Peanut Punch, we talked about it on this show before. You called Vasher the interceptor. Tillman had quite a few interceptions, and then when you add on the forced fumbles, it's just incredible how many times he impacted the game. So I like the pick. All right.
If I recall, doesn't he have the most return touchdowns as a cornerback? Isn't that what we decided?
I believe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the most touchdowns, fumble returns and interceptions, I believe.
Yeah.
He's got them both.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Man. All right. All right. I am going to surprise myself here. Ooh.
Only because you were forced to.
No. I mean, in a way, because we know the constraints of decades and things like that. And so we'll see when the whole team is filled out if this pick was pivotal. But I'm going 2020s.
All right.
Current Bears. And I'm going corners. I'm going with Jaylon Johnson and Kyler Gordon.
That's who I had.
There we go. Okay.
Yep. I was going to take him next. So this is
okay, good. We know Jaylon Johnson, all pro, and his stats, sometimes his stats are maybe a little underwhelming, but he pretty much has gotten to the point of respect where teams don't even throw it to where he's at. And that's the ultimate sign of a solid shutdown corner. And with Kyler Gordon, and I'm speaking to what he's already shown, but a little bit peeking towards what I think he's going to do this year and beyond. He's a gadget. I mean, he can do it all. He's not afraid to come in and play the run. Awesome celebration, too, with the Spider-Man leap. So I like the pick. I'm going Jaylon Johnson, Kyler Gordon, 20s.
Yeah, I mean, the guy can't stay on the field, so I don't know. Kyler Gordon, rough pick right there.
I mean, Kyler Gordon isn't even really a corner. He's a nickel.
He's a nickel.
He can play outside.
He played outside in 2021.
Should have just taken.
Well, I would have. I don't want to say anything.
I don't know. I almost did the same thing. I don't want to.
Yeah. A famous blunder. You got on your team.
Feel free. Any of you, he's still available.
I think Bob's going to steal my pick here, though.
There's a few ways that I could go. I'm probably going to steal one of your picks. I'm glad that I got, I think, basically the strongest defensive end duo in the weakest decade. So I'm glad that that's off the board, but it's wide open from here on out. I am going to just take one of my all-time favorite players. It's just a matter of which one.
I know the decade.
Gosh, why is this so difficult?
It's a lot harder than you think it is.
Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan. I'm going to leave. Maybe Gary will make my mind up for me. All right, so Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan. I don't want those guys on Rob's boards. I want Roquan on my team. He was an all-pro here, stud. Danny Trevathan, I think, is very underrated. I love Danny Trevathan, not just as a player, as a guy. I thought he was a great press conference guy, just great, just seemed like a real genuine dude. So I'm happy to get a couple of my favorite players off of those 2018 teams.
Wait, was that 2010?
2010s, yep.
2010s.
Okay.
So you guys got nothing to add to that?
I'll be honest. I think Danny Trevathan is very underrated. I loved him in Denver when they brought him over here to Chicago. Like, I was super excited. Like, what was it? There was another linebacker he was paired with for a while that I won't say a name. Like, although I don't know if that guy was ever paired with anyone else, so maybe I could. That it was also on my board as like a potential throw-in linebacker if I needed it. So yeah, I think it's a great pick. And obviously Roquan, I mean, fans love him. We just talked about it recently. I think he's a little bit overrated. The position I think is a little bit overrated. So that in its sense. But look, it's Chicago Bears, and to have Roquan Smith as your middle linebacker-ish, right? Like that looks fantastic on the
he was
graphic.
a top 10 pick
Yep.
at a non-premium position, and I think he lived up to that value still. So I mean, it was good for him. Good for him. Good for me.
Good for you for sure.
All right, Gary.
Well, I appreciate, Bob. I forgot that you already had the 1990s with your first pick, because in the 1990s here, I almost took these guys at 1-1 because I thought they're their only duo in the 1990s that actually qualified for, I would say, above average players. I know you skirted that issue a little bit, but I'm going to go with Donnell Wolford and Walt Harris at corner. Two great cornerbacks that do not get enough credit. Both of them are in the class of very good. Donnell Wolford couldn't stay healthy for a lot of his career, but when he did, he was always on the field and dominated. Walt Harris had a long career with the Bears, and I just thought they were a great duo in the 90s under Dick Duran for a while too, and they couldn't be stopped. That was probably the only thing good about the Bears' defense in the 1990s is they had a pair of solid corners. So I almost took him at 1-1 was my strategy, thinking that was the only duo that could come up with the 90s. I wasn't playing that game that you crossed decades there, Bob, but I'm going to go with the corners there.
I'd say that worked out for you. You got Briggs and Urlacher, and then your 1-1 pick. So that worked out. That worked out for you. But I mean, Donnell Wolford's another one of these guys that when we start doing these, shorts on Bears history, his name appears on every single list. He's like he was a good tackler, interceptions. Like he just did it all for a good amount of time. So yeah, I love that pick. It's it's a solid. It's going to look good on your board. A pair of players from the 90s that'll look good on your board.
Yeah, that was my number 3 duo for the cornerback position. Wolford, he only had 1 Pro Bowl. I think he should have had a couple more, but averaged 4 interceptions for the Bears a year. A couple of years he had 7. So I mean that's a great pick. And Walt Harris is just if you're a Bears fan and you're over the age of 35, you just need to know who Walt Harris is.
Is that who you thought I was going 1-1, Rob, when you thought my strategy?
No, I thought you were going 80s. I really did.
Oh, no.
I would have called reach on that had you taken him 1-1.
Yeah, no, I think – look, Urlacher and Briggs never would have made it back, so that was the right choice that you're 1-1.
Fair enough. All right, well –
you're still on the board, though.
I know, I'm thinking. I could go 2 different directions. So, all right, I will go 80s now and close it off, and we'll go with the 1985 – safety pair of Dave Durson and Gary Fenwick. I mean, after Plank left, those 2 guys took over that 46 defense, and Gary Fenwick just crushed everybody. Nobody wanted to pass on those guys. Those guys were clobbering everybody. Most of those hits these days wouldn't even be legal in the NFL, and those 2 guys just dominated the 80s for a long time, and it was great to see. And unfortunately, with Durson, with concussions and so forth, his life ended, sadly, but those guys, watching grow up and watching the highlights, those guys just dominated the NFL. Nobody could stack on top of them.
I heard Durson. Did you say Fenwick?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
It's interesting because when I went back to look at stats, it's like they didn't know how to keep stats back then. I couldn't easily find Fenwick's tackles, but I know he was always around the ball, putting mean hits on people. The 80s were different. The way they let people get hit, and the Bears were known for it. So even prior to the Super Bowl, and I know my dad used to love to tell me about this, if the Bears didn't win, the one thing they knew was the team they played wouldn't win the next week because they were, banged up from playing against the Bears. And a big part of that was Gary Fenwick, as well as Dave Durson. So I like the pick.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
So my next pick, I'm really debating whether I'm going to throw another wrench into this thing or just go straight up.
I mean, you've already screwed it over since the second pick in the draft. You might
I know, but I don't know if I want to do, because it just it's one of these guys who had a short-lived career as it was, but he was much better in a different decade. Let me see what I'm working with here. I just can't bring myself to do it. So I'm going to take 2020 safety, and I'm going to do it. Jaquan Brisker, and I will take Eddie Jackson. The debate was whether I'm going to go Byard or Eddie Jackson, but Eddie Jackson might look better on the graphic. And, Byard really only had 1 year, but I thought Byard was excellent last year. I wasn't sure when they signed him, so I know I'm talking more about Byard than everybody else, but I need safeties. The way this board is lining up, I kind of know where my last pick is going to be. So Jaquan Brisker has not been my favorite Bears player of all time, but when he was healthy last year, he was finally lived up to a dominant beast. And then Eddie Jackson. I mean, what can you say? The guy was just electric. He was so much fun to watch when he was healthy. When he came back from injuries, I think there were just some things he knew that there was a whole bunch of nonsense going on in the organization. Maybe effort wasn't always there, but just a stud safety. And, that's my pick for the 20s. Saw the silence after I picked.
I to be honest, Bob, those were two guys I was considering instead of the 1980s because I was looking at. I still have DE and DT to go. I'll be honest, it's not a secret. Rob's keeping track, so I was trying to figure out where to go, and those two guys were definitely on my board of considering to. But with you playing the Dent game of the 1990s, they're off my DE theory, so one with the 80s there. But those were two great guys, and when healthy, those two guys can dominate the modern NFL. It's plain and simple.
Yeah,
health has always been the concern, but those two guys.
Full boat admission, they never dominated together, and I understand that. But you got to make some picks with the decade's constraint. So,
the graphic.
But you don't want to take Chris Conte instead.
No tipping picks, Gary. Come on.
Damn, I won't pick him now.
All right, Chelsea.
All right. Wow. Oh, this is a tough, guys. I hope I don't burn myself here.
Who cares? Bob already ruined the whole draft.
All right, you know what? I'm switching up.
At least mine.
I'm switching it up. All right. The Bears are known for defense. The Bears are known for defense, which is why this is such a fun draft to do. But that being said, there was one decade that I wasn't as thrilled with my options. And so I'm going to go safety in the 90s, and I'm going with Mark Carrier and Sean Gale. Now, Mark Carrier is known for his rookie season. 1990, 10 interceptions in his rookie year. But beyond that, he continued to produce, was a good tackler, was around the ball a lot, never as much as his rookie year. And Sean Gale, I looked up his stats, and his best years was actually 1990 and 1991. He went to the Pro Bowl in 91. So Carrier's 10 interception year, these were the stats for Sean Gale. 2 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, and 125 tackles. So I think when you pair those two together in a decade that I wasn't that thrilled with, I like the pick there.
I mean, it was a starting Pro Bowl safety tandem in 1991, to your point. They both made the Pro Bowl again in 91. As you said, Carey made it in 1990 as well. But those two guys in the early 1990s with the guys I took over with Wilford and Harris, that was probably the bright spot.
Yep.
That team started to go downhill, and Wannstedt and had a lot to deal with, and there wasn't much happiness during that time for those that are over 35. So, good pick.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing my research, had I gone just a standard 80s route or whatever with my first pick, I was definitely going to take either Carrier or Gale or Wolford, Harris, whatever Gary didn't take with my 3rd round pick. So it's the right spot for them. These two guys were really, really good players for a good amount of time. Several Pro Bowls between the two of them. It was a good pick. Good pick.
I'm pissed.
Well,
that's the pick I wanted. You sniped me.
All right.
I've got nobody left.
Well, at the very end, I'll talk about my other thought. But
damn it. I really thought that I was going to get them on one of these two just based off of the decades that I was taking and who I wanted to focus on at other positions in other decades. And now it's completely messed up. All right. Well, since that's out the window and you guys all have your safeties drafted, I'm just going to sit back and wait and figure out what I'm going to do with the last pick in the draft at that position. So now I'm going to go. What is the best combination here?
I'm not tipping picks, but there's some.
Yeah, but he already. Never mind.
All right.
Justin, I think you and I are thinking the same thing with Rob right now. Rob's hurting himself right now.
Yep, I think he might have.
Yep.
I broke Rob. I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't know I was just going to completely break you.
No. I'm okay. To buy some time, I'm going to take my 2020s pick here. Wait, or do I want 2010?
Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment.
Thank you very much.
Rob's gonna start making up Bears players' names, like Bear or not a Bear right now.
All right, you know what? I'm going to take the 2010s. I'm going to take them in the 2010s. I changed my mind. I was going to do a different pairing here, but you guys are losing Khalil Mack. I'm throwing that out there right now. Khalil Mack is going off the board. I was just trying to figure out who I wanted to pair him with and what years I wanted to use him in.
Are you pulling a Bob right now?
I am pulling. No, I mean,
What
2018 is his most dominant season.
What position?
Ends, defensive ends. Like he's an edge, right?
Didn't
He's
you
an
take?
edge.
I thought you took him already. Oh, okay, never mind.
No.
He claimed Hampton was a defensive tackle.
All right.
So I am going to go with Khalil Mack, and although he didn't get as much love here in Chicago, he definitely dominated with the Rams for a while. We are going to go with Leonard Floyd.
And those are the 10s?
And those are the 10s.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, curious to know where you go in the 20s because, I mean, we can tip it now. Like, Mack and Quinn was something I thought about taking in the first round almost. Like,
Well,
you have
that's where I was
Hall of
headed.
Famer, the guy who's got the Bears record.
I thought he was going to go.
I mean, I guess if you're going to follow up with a pick you really like in the 20s, that's all good and well, good for you. But I mean, I would have thought that Mack and Quinn was the combo.
Here's my problem. I have no linebackers. And yes, there are some good linebackers, but Brian Urlacher played for so freaking long that like he takes so much off the board.
But I can name a couple linebacker deals you have not thought of right now.
And then I have one, and I actually really like it, but I don't know if I want to use it here. And then we just talked about a pair that like I'm okay with taking here in the 20s as well.
So you can tip linebackers and safeties right now because we all have them.
Okay. All right. Well, here's the thing. I shouldn't have done what I did, and I should have taken Quinn.
Because he just hurt himself.
Hands off the chess piece, Rob. Hand is off the chess piece.
I didn't. I did what I wanted. I did what I wanted.
Well, what do you want to do, Rob?
I still have my 2000s pick. No, I don't. Damn it. I lost track of my own stuff here, and this is ruining everything.
Take your time, Keith. It's all right.
Man, I hope those people are listening to this episode.
Boy.
Justin, what do you still need right now? Well, Rob's saying what position?
Well, I don't want to say it.
Well, it doesn't matter. We all only have 2 left, so I mean, in our decades. All right, fair.
Keep your boards. Because I still have some decisions to make, and of course, obviously, Rob's pick might influence that.
Well, Rob needs what? Safety and linebacker, but I thought we all have safety and linebacker to Bob's point.
Because I screwed myself, I'm just going to use my 2020s, and I'm going to go with TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's adequate.
Well, we all have linebackers, right? So I could say this now.
Yeah, we're all cleared out there.
Rob, why didn't you go with Barry Minter in the 1990s?
Sean Harris, yeah.
I'm not a big Brian Cox, Barry Minter fan.
Okay, you could, as Bob just said, you could have used Sean Harris.
I'm not a Sean Harris fan either.
I think
they kind of just
All right.
All right.
They're on my board.
And then we want to talk to the merits of TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds.
I mean, we literally just did an episode on how they are ranked higher than the Baltimore Ravens right now versus by PFF. So, like, look, clearly they are better than people like to give them credit for. I think Edwards is by far one of the best linebackers as far as value goes from his contract. I mean, the guy just plays football. And Tremaine Edmonds is way overpaid, but look, now he's in a new system. I'm expecting better results.
You don't want any John Roper or Jim Morrissey combos in the 1990s?
No. Since linebackers are linebackers all gone?
Yeah, we're all done.
That's all closed out.
The other option that I was thinking of doing, and this is where I kind of screwed myself, is because I thought that I still had 2000s available. I was going to go Warwick Holdman and Roosevelt Colvin.
It's sneaky, but it
very sneaky.
Did they have no crossover in the 90s?
No, they only played together in
90s.
2001 together, so that would have been only 1 year. He would have pulled it off, but yeah.
All right. Am I up?
Yep.
All right. Whew. I had to do a lot of calculating here. And
luckily, Rob gave you enough time to do it. So.
He did give me a while. Yeah, you're right about that. So I am going to go. I'm leaving Bob some players that I'm sure he'll be happy about. But I'm going to go 2000s. I'm going with Alex Brown and Adewale Ogunleye. Alex Brown, I think, was just a steady performer for the Bears all through the 2000s. An important part of the team that went to the Super Bowl. Was Defensive Player of the Year, sixth in Defensive Player of the Year in 2005, which was Ogunleye's second year with the Bears, where he also had 10 sacks. And so across from each other, they were quite a good tandem for the Bears when they were in their 2000s heyday. I'm pretty happy to get them at this point in the draft. So,
I think that's going to work out for you. I mean, just a great duo. Obviously, the Super Bowl team duo. Alex Brown, just very consistent. And Goulier here wasn't here for that long, but I mean, he was such a big part when he came over straight from Miami, right? And he was just a beast.
How long do you think he was with us, Bob?
What, 05 to 08?
04 to 09, 6 seasons.
Okay. All right. Okay.
He's got a special place in my heart. He went to IU. I saw him play my freshman year.
He's literally a prince, guys.
That's true.
He's a prince.
He is.
True.
But
Is it Nigerian? Is he a Nigerian prince?
That's a Yoruba. Yep. So another reason I had to take him. But I actually had them as my number 2 defensive ends behind Hampton and Dent. So I'm pretty happy to get them in the 4th round.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know where you go next, because I thought maybe we'd be competing for defensive tackles here.
That's why I left you.
And I actually... Whatever. I'm going to go with just one of my all-time favorite players. We'll talk about honorable mentions later, but it's Tommy Harris and Tank Johnson. Tommy Harris is just like my guy. He's my Derrick Rose. He's the guy who got away. Tommy Harris never got hurt. We're talking about a Hall of Fame player, I think. That guy was just as good of an athlete as I think has been at the defensive tackle position until like some of these recent athletes, the Quinnen Williams and Aaron Donalds and things like that. That guy was just an absolute freak of nature. I loved watching him play. Just seeing him shoot a gap was just like, it was just breathtaking at times, just the athleticism that guy had. So just an absolute monster, short-lived, unfortunately. But yeah, Tommy Harrison. Tank Johnson was a guy that obviously maybe had some off-the-field issues, but he was also just one of these freaks. He was a bigger guy, but just the strength and everything that he played with. It was a solid combo. And, 4th round here, I'm really happy getting one of my favorite Bears of all time.
That's who I almost took, Bobo, and I know how much you like Tommy Harris. That tandem, I felt they complemented each other very, very well. Really, for me, it was just who I might be able to get from the last decade I have left, and really liking the ends that I was able to get. But it was a tough choice between those two, so I'm glad they were the very next pick.
Gary?
That makes my last 2 picks actually easier than I thought, so I do appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I am going to pull a Bob here a little bit because I'm going to use this guy in the 2020s. He did play in 2020 with the Bears, but I'm going to go with big boy Hakeem Nicks, and I'm going to go with Bilal Nichols. Bilal Nichols, it was rookie year, like who cares? Keem Hicks at that 5-tech. Nobody could buy him. Fan favorite, dominated the years he was there. What a find by Pace. Bounced around. That was a great job by him. Wish we could keep him longer. Sad to see him go, but that's my defensive tackle pairing because at defensive end, then I'm going to use my 2010s. And even though Rob took Mack and Floyd in the 2010s, there might be actually 2 defensive ends that were better during that decade, and that would be the Hall of Famer Julius Peppers and the all-time great Bear. And I believe he's Nigerian too, if you want to call him, but I don't think he's a prince. Israel Donajay.
I mean,
all very good in my book.
That's the steal of the draft right there, Gary. I mean, Hall of Famer in the 5th round here. That board just played out perfectly for you. Congratulations, nicely done. I love the strategery of making Hicks in the 20. Hicks is again like just one of my favorite players. He was so much fun to root for. Just loved the way he played, and then Adonijay is another one of those guys. Just just a pure bear, right? I think he did play on a couple other teams afterwards, but it's just like you think about those years of the Bears. He was just an overachiever, and then getting a Hall of Famer in the 5th round is excellent work, Gary.
Well, and what a steal to find is I believe we got him out of the CFL too. Like he was a guy that started his career there, picked him up as a tryout player, I believe, and he just stuck and loved him to death. And he was like that first guy. He would play defensive end for a while, but then he moved inside, as a pass rusher on, downs, especially after we drafted some guy named Shane McClellan, who we don't need to talk about. But Izzy in the early 2010s was dominating with Peppers.
100%.
Bob,
You're right,
Justin, did that throw you off a little bit?
Yes. I wouldn't have done what I did. I'm devastated. Oh.
That's all right.
No.
So,
you're in a better position than me, Justin. You're in a better position than me.
So this is a pretty similar position that I was in the offensive draft. Still happy with the 80s player that fell to me, but it definitely just worked out this way that it fell to me. I needed cornerbacks, and it's Leslie Frazier and Mike Richardson. These were the combo of the Super Bowl teams. Very good players. Not much individual accolades for either one of them. Leslie Frazier actually had a shorter career than I really even thought. He just played the 5 years, 81 to 85. But, what a way to kind of go out. He had, 6 picks that season. Where Mike Richardson he actually had a touchdown himself, 4 picks. So these were just that defense was so dominant, and yes, it's probably easier to play cornerback when you have that kind of pass rush going on. Absolutely understood. But these guys absolutely deserve to be mentioned in a draft like this when they're on that kind of defense. So happy to round out my draft with a couple Super Bowl champions.
It stinks that Leslie Frazier didn't play longer. I believe injuries caught up to him, unfortunately, and it ended his career shortly after that. But what a dominant pair. I mean, again, nobody was scoring that 85 team. We all got somebody from it, and there's a reason why they're considered either the best or second best defense for a particular year ever in the NFL.
All right.
I heard Justin with the crossover.
Makes brains.
I'm so mad. So, Rob, do you already have your 2010s? Wait, either way, you have your DTs, right?
Rob has his 10s. He's got Mack and Floyd.
Rob is screwed, guys.
So you have Khalil Mack, Dan
Hampton. Guys.
All right.
I have 90s left. I am screwed.
You should have taken linebacker in the 90s, Rob. It's what I did.
No, I'm picking safety.
Oh, I know. I could tell you the safeties.
Yeah.
All right.
I know
we'll make fun of Rob in a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
Gary took Hicks, who I wanted to get at DT for the 10s, and it really made it tough. And I want to make a joke here, but I only think Bob will get it. I was going to go, and this doesn't count as tipping because I don't think Bob can take these guys. I was going to go Eddie Goldman with Mitch Unrein. Number 1 player IDP in Yahoo's ranking.
That's right.
But I'm going to actually go with 2010s Henry Melton and Anthony Adams, Spice Adams. Now, Melton was a Pro Bowler in 2012, 6 sacks that year, 9 tackles for loss. And the year before that was actually even better, 7 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and 15 quarterback hits. I just think he wasn't known enough to get the Pro Bowl recognition. Anthony Adams, real character, but playing on the interior, you don't always get the stats, but he could stop the run, and I was stuck with him. So that's my pick, Spice Adams with Henry Melton.
You don't want to take Stephen Paye at all?
I mean, that's how bad it was getting, but I almost took Mitch Unrein, so.
You had Jay Ratliff for a year. I mean, that would have been.
Oh man,
it's fun when it doesn't happen to you, but that's the fun of this structure of this draft, right? You just kind of get.
It is harder with duos.
You got to dig deep.
I wanted Hicks and Goldman there.
Well, Justin, because of that, I was looking at my board. I'm like, I need DN and DT because I'm done. I can say it. And because Rob crossed over and Bob crossed over between decades, I said, screw it, I'm crossing over.
Yeah, man. All right. How you going to do this, Rob?
This is actually, I think, an obvious pick, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly one of the safeties is.
Yeah, Bob, I think you and I are,
Yeah.
Well,
he's got 90s?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Does Tony Parrish fall into the 90s?
Yes,
does.
that's the obvious one.
Okay. So
Yes.
now my question is, who can I pair with him?
Do you want our help? I could tell you.
We'll do some
I actually wrote
research
this
for
pair
you here,
down.
Rob.
So now that's been tipped, I really wanted to take Mike Brown with Parrish. Brown's 2000, just so you know.
Yeah, no, I can't.
That was one of the best.
I know I had them.
Rob, can I give you the who it is? I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Just give it to Marty
It's
Carter.
Marty Carter.
Marty Carter. Yeah.
I actually wrote those two down because Tony Parrish did great in the 90s.
Parrish,
it didn't
Yeah,
matter.
I had Parrish in the 2000s with Brown, but
Okay.
it's sad that Mike Brown didn't get drafted here.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's do the recap and then let's dig deeper into some of these honorable mentions. Rob, you got any highlights that you want to give for Tony Parrish and Marty Carter first? No,
Wait. All right. And it's here's the thing: is I should have went with different linebackers, and I should have taken Quinn instead of Floyd, and then I would have been in a better position at safety here because I think I would have set myself up to actually take Brown if I'm looking at it correctly. But when I'm trying to write down all these picks and keep track of everything for the board, it's very difficult to keep up.
Yeah. So we got let's get in the recap, and then we'll do a breakdown of everything. So all right. First pick, Gary, right? So his team, I'm just gonna go in order of defensive instead of order of rounds, right? So we're gonna start with the defensive line. Peppers and Adonijay from the 10s at end. Akeem Nicks and Bilal Nichols in the 20s at defensive tackle. Brian Urlacher to Lance Briggs in the 2000s at linebacker. Donnell Wolford and Walt Harris in the 90s at corner. And Gary Fensick and Dave Dewerson in the 80s at safety. I'd say that's a
I'm pretty sure I won this draft.
I think you might have. What OCs would be doing if they had to face that team.
Yeah. So my team is Richard Dent and Trace Armstrong in the 90s at end. My tackles are Tommy Harris and Tank Johnson from the 2000s. Linebackers Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan in the 10s. My corners are Leslie Frazier, Mike Richardson from the 80s. And then safeties, Jaquan Brisker and Eddie Jackson in the 20s. Justin, Alex Brown and Adewale Ogunleye in the 2000s. Henry Melton and Spice Adams in the 10s. Singletary and Wilbur Marshall in the 80s. Jaylon Johnson and Kyler Gordon in the 20s. And Mark Carrier and Sean Gale in the 90s. And then Rob, Khalil Mack, Leonard Floyd in the 10s. Dan Hampton, Steve McMichael in the 80s. TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds in the 20s. Charles Tillman, Nate Vasher in the 2000s. And then Tony Parrish and Marty Carter in the 90s. So that's where we're at. So everyone in the comments, everyone still watching, you got to get down, vote for your winner. Trust me, none of us will take any offense if you don't vote for us. We just want to see that you guys enjoy this and want to see a winner. If you feel bad for Rob, I guess some pity votes are fine. But,
when you
I'll take all the help I can get.
When you read it off like that, Bob, if that was a defense that you put out on the field,
I agree.
These rosters, man, they're
Rob, on paper, it looks a lot better than the mental process.
It's just the safety position.
I think
but Tony Parrish is a beast.
He was great. He was fantastic, but he's not in the comparisons of Eddie Jack. Look, this was Parrish was 6th on my safety board.
He might be better than Eddie Jackson. Unfortunately,
no.
Hold on. Unfortunately,
they play two different positions. Tony Parrish was a hard-hitting safety.
Yeah, it was a hard-hitting free. He's Jaquan Brisker of the 90s.
Yeah, but
only he doesn't get concussion.
His bigger interception numbers came after he left Chicago, but he could pick off the ball too. I like the pick. And again, I know we're breaking down our rosters. I'm surprised Mike Brown wasn't on here. I probably should have somehow found a way to get him.
I think he's the number one honorable mention here. I mean, he was just also one of my favorite players. Him and Urlacher came in together in that same draft. He was, and I say this all the time, Urlacher might have been the best player in that defense, but Mike Brown was the leader, right? He was the one everyone looked to. He was the quarterback of the defense. He did it all, and he was so super talented too. He was a ball hawk, run defender. He did it all. Mike Brown was so good, and I wish he kind of got in this draft, but it's just because of the decades and because the defense in the 2000s were so good, it's just unfortunately he got left off. But what a stud.
I got another honorable I'll mention again from the 2000s. I mean, the 1985 team and then, the 2000s just had a ton of guys. Another honorable mention that nobody picked was a 2001. That was Ted Washington and Keith Traylor. Yeah. I mean, that was a stone cold wall. Nobody was running through the Bears that year. And those two guys, unstoppable. Keith Traylor's interception running back is still a highlight many Bears fans
100%.
remember from that time frame. And I'm surprised nobody took those guys either. So I
was-
had him down as pretty high actually in the 2000s.
In that fourth round, I was actually hoping Justin was going to take Tommy Harris, even though Tommy Harris is like one of my favorite players, because I was going to back it up with Traylor in Washington, because those guys were just so much fun to watch. But between the two of them, I don't think I made one of my favorite players and probably a better player is Tommy Harris. But yeah, Ted Washington and Keith Traylor, I'm glad they're getting a mention here.
I got another one. So I talked about how Charles Tillman spanned such a long time and could have been picked in 2 decades here. Gary, you took him in the 10s, I believe, right? If you had
didn't Rob take Tillman?
Yeah, I got
Oh,
him.
I'm sorry. Rob had him.
Yeah, I took the
2000. He's got Tillman and Bash in the 2000s. So Rob, you could have taken Mike Brown.
If you would have gone in the 10s, you could have gone Tillman and Tim Jennings. Jennings went to back-to-back Pro Bowls. In 2012, had 9 interceptions and was All-Pro, second-team All-Pro. So I think that's another player that could have been drafted in this.
100%. Another 2010s cornerback duo didn't go is Kyle Fuller and Prince Amukamara. I think that they would have been a very solid combo.
Bryce Callahan.
Nickel route. Very solid player. I mean, he didn't get the contract with the Bears, but he went to the Broncos, I think. Just kind of got hurt and didn't really make too much of an impact, but he was a lot of fun on those teams too.
And since Bob decided to cross decades with Dent, one guy that did not, just an individual that did not get mentioned, this guy who scored the touchdown in the Super Bowl would be William the Fridge Perry. I know we don't have a deal, but him and McMichael were the true defensive tackles during that Super Bowl team, and we all love the Fridge. Enough said.
Yeah, and Gary, I have no problem with you going Fensick and Dewerson, but you could have gone Fensick and Doug Plank, the guy that 46 defense.
It's funny that you said it because I actually texted Rob earlier today and I said, hey, like what happens like if somebody takes like Fensick, can I also take him if it's a different time frame? And he goes, no, once one guy you lose across the board. Yeah. So he was telling me that, and I was tempted to do that Plank and Fensick. That's a great point you made.
Had to come to it, and I don't think it ever would have, but I was going to take Grady Jarrett and Javon Dexter, defensive tackles in the 2020.
I had an asterisk by it.
Jones wrote it down as a pair just in case I needed to.
Well, I had an asterisk by it. I mean, obviously everyone knows how much I love Javon Dexter, but like having Grady Jarrett, look, he hasn't done a damn thing for the Bears yet, other than I just think being here, like the leadership, the things that he's doing right now is probably going to drive a lot of impact into the 2025 season. It could be completely wrong, but I had an asterisk by it because in the offensive one, we talked about not taking any guys like Joe Thuney, right? So like,
well, so I was thinking that in the offensive one, and this could just speak to how the Bears franchise has been over the decades, but in the offensive one, it was so tempting to take 2020's players purely off the little bit they've done and projection, because you already feel like that's better than what you've seen. But in the defense, that's not the case. They have solid defenders at every level.
So I got a few more names for honorable mentions. One is like, I think, Justin, you made, I think, the right choice with Wilbur Marshall, but I think Otis Wilson deserves to be mentioned, right? So no worry about that. And these guys aren't necessarily worth mentioning, but they were on my list if it came to it in the 90s. Chris Zorich and Jim Flanagan, tackles.
I almost took them.
Flanagan I had written down. That's a good point.
Flanagan has some sneaky stats, man.
Yeah.
Didn't he have a double-digit sack season?
I don't know if he hit 10.
I don't know about that.
I know he had like 7 or 8.
I'm going to check real quick.
There's also safety in the 2010s that you're missing that I would have probably picked with Jackson. That was actually a better combination.
You're right.
Adrian
Amos and Jackson.
I kind of spoiled Adrian Amos's chance to get mentioned. I'm glad you brought him up because I took Eddie Jackson in the 20s. But yeah.
I didn't have 2010s available either because I got stuck at safety. I was thinking, could I go Amos and like Daniel Manning? I think they crossed paths at one point, but again, I didn't have 2010s available.
Let's take a look, Rob. I don't think they did, but maybe you're right.
Jim Flanagan in 95, 11 sacks.
Wow. See,
in 98,
good, man.
Yeah.
You could have done Daniel Manning and Chris Harris.
I had them listed too, yeah.
No, it was Amos and Jackson, Amos and Harold Jones Cordier for a year.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, Harold Jones. Yeah.
Antron Roll for a year. That was his other pairing.
Oh, Antron Roll. Yeah.
Came in from the Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were really struggling, you could have done Major Wright and Chris Conte. That's why I was making them.
All right. Well, hey, boys, this was
It was
another
fun.
really fun draft. Maybe, I know doing the 2-0s like made us think a little harder, and then I just went and threw a wrench in right away. But this was a lot of fun. Gary, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us, man.
Well, thank you guys. I had a blast doing this, and I appreciate the time.
My early vote is for you, Gary.
I was going to say, Gary, we loved having you, but you're a guest. You're not supposed to win.
Yeah.
I mean, not
Strategy,
so
my friend, strategy.
No, well, it's nice to see. Yeah, I mean, whatever. The votes are still going to come in. We don't know what's going to happen, but I mean, if you ended up with a stronger board without necessarily having a Walter Payton out there, I think that's some good work. So good for you.
You're just trying to water down my win there, Bob. Thanks.
All right.
So we good, boys?
Yeah.
We're good.
Thank you.
Training camp soon, guys. Everybody, bear down.
Claws
Claws
up.
up.
What's up?
Dog's in on it too.
Ready, break.